Shen Qing opened her eyes, the chandelier on the ceiling dazzling and extravagant. She rubbed her temples, trying to figure out where she was. "Miss Shen, here's the breakup agreement. Please sign it." A deep, cold voice came from the side. Shen Qing was startled and turned to look. In front of her stood a man in a perfectly tailored suit. He was tall, his features chiseled and striking a classic domineering CEO. His arms were crossed as he stared at her coldly, his gaze distant and impatient, as if she were nothing more than an insignificant part of his life. "Is this Gu Yanzi?" Shen Qing's mind flashed with memories from the character she had become. She was stunned to realize she had transmigrated into a domineering CEO novel, and she was the male lead Gu Yanzi's ex. According to the original plot, the character she replaced had done everything possible to win back Gu Yanzi, even to the point of humbling herself and begging. But in the end, she was reduced to cannon fodder with a tragic fate. Shen Qing gritted her teeth, secretly determined, since fate had given her a second chance, she would never repeat the same mistakes. Seeing her delay, Gu Yanzi frowned and pushed the document toward her impatiently. "Miss Shen, since you agreed to the breakup, please sign this agreement immediately. I'm busy and don't have time to waste." Shen Qing glanced over the clauses in the agreement. It was nothing more than a payoff to make her disappear from his life completely. A trace of mockery flashed through her heart. This man thinks he's irreplaceable? Does he think he's the only one who can end things on his terms? Keeping her expression calm, she gave him a slight, cold smile. "All right, if you're so eager to break up, I'll grant your wish." Gu Yanzi seemed momentarily surprised by her straightforwardness, but quickly masked it, pushing the document back toward her. "Then sign it," he said flatly, as if everything was still under his control. Shen Qing picked up the pen and signed her name without hesitation, her movements swift and decisive. She pushed the agreement back to him, her lips curving in a mocking smile. "From today onward, Mr. Gu, we'll go our separate ways." Gu Yanzi's eyes narrowed slightly, seemingly puzzled by her composure. He had expected her to hesitate, to plead, or even to cry and beg him to stay. But her reaction completely defied his expectations, as if he were nothing more than a passing stranger. "Very well." Gu Yanzi's face remained cold as he stood to leave, but Shen Qing suddenly stood as well and calmly said, "Mr. Gu, keep the breakup fee. I don't need your charity." She glanced at him indifferently and then turned to leave, her back exuding confidence as she walked away. The moment Shen Qing stepped out of the hotel, she finally exhaled in relief. Her heart was still racing, but more than anything, she felt an unprecedented sense of freedom. "Since I'm your ex now, I'll make sure to live a life better than yours." After the breakup, Shen Qing decisively invested the money she received into the environmental technology industry, establishing her own company. At first, she didn't attract much attention in the industry, but with her keen business acumen and precise market positioning, her company quickly found its footing. She appeared at several critical investment events, showcasing her exceptional negotiation skills and sparking buzz in the industry. In just a few months, her name began circulating in business circles, with some newspapers even dubbing her a young business rising star. At a formal evening banquet, Shen Qing wore a deep blue gown, exuding elegance and grace as she held a glass of red wine, chatting and laughing with influential business leaders. Suddenly, she felt an intense gaze fixed on her. Turning slowly, she found herself looking at Gu Yanzi. Gu Yanzi raised an eyebrow, his gaze holding a hint of curiosity. In the few months since they'd last seen each other, Shen Qing's demeanor had transformed entirely, the woman who once pined over him had completely vanished. He approached her, his voice cold. "Shen Qing, I must say, your transformation is unexpected." Shen Qing smiled brightly, responding without hesitation, "Thank you, Mr. Gu, for setting me free. Without you, I might not have made it to where I am today." He narrowed his eyes, a touch of coldness in his tone. Seems like you're quite satisfied with the breakup settlement. Shen Qing raised an eyebrow and chuckled sarcastically, Mr. Gu, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Do you really have time to meddle in my life now? Gu Yanzi's gaze grew colder. Don't get too complacent, Shen Qing. The business world isn't as simple as it seems. Shen Qing smiled indifferently, thanks for the reminder, Mr. Gu. But I'll carve out my own future. She turned and walked away, leaving decisively. As her company reached a critical growth phase, Shen Qing was blindsided by a sudden funding shortage and the withdrawal of a key investor, plunging her into an unprecedented crisis. One late night, Shen Qing stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in her company's office, looking out over the brightly lit city, a trace of uncertainty crossing her mind. She knew that without a new source of funding, her company was on the brink of collapse. At that moment, the office door opened, and Gu Yanzi stood in the doorway, calm and composed. Shen Qing turned to face him, surprised. Mr. Gu? What are you doing here? Gu Yanzi smiled faintly. I heard your company's in trouble. Shen Qing clenched her fists, replying coldly, there's no need for you to worry about me. My issues are none of your concern. Gu Yanzi raised an eyebrow. I'm just here to remind you that not everyone succeeds in business. Shen Qing felt a surge of anger at his condescending tone. Gu Yanzi, do you think you're the only one capable of succeeding? I can do it, too. Gu Yanzi's tone was indifferent yet carried an undeniable authority. Then go ahead and try, Shen Qing. While Shen Qing grappled with the company's financing crisis, she was quietly planning a new path forward. However, no matter which bank or investment institution she contacted, she encountered one setback after another. She began to suspect that someone was working behind the scenes, deliberately blocking her every move. Amidst the chaos, Gu Yanzi appeared once more in her company's meeting room, holding a thick collaboration agreement. Seated arrogantly at the conference table, his handsome face bore an unyielding smile. Miss Shen, aren't you interested in the cooperation opportunity I'm offering? A hint of suspicion flashed in Shen Qing's eyes as she sneered, President Gu, your terms are never simple, are they? Gu Yanzi tapped the table lightly and spoke calmly, if you agree to my conditions, I can get your company back on track. Shen Qing looked him straight in the eye, her gaze growing colder. I don't need your charity, and I have no intention of becoming your pawn. Gu Yanzi didn't show any anger, instead, he smirked, his eyes full of challenge. Shen Qing, your choices are running out. You can refuse me proudly, but your company might go bankrupt because of it. Inside, Shen Qing's emotions churned like waves on a stormy sea. She clenched her fists tightly, her knuckles turning white. She knew that Gu Yanzi indeed had the power to resurrect her company, but she also understood what accepting this help would mean. President Gu, she replied icily, you should know that's not a reason for me to compromise. Gu Yanzi gave a faint smile, his gaze sharp. Then think it over carefully. Days later, Shen Qing had to assess her situation calmly. With her company on the brink of survival, she was out of options. She knew that if she didn't accept Gu Yanzi's terms, everything she had worked so hard to build would collapse. As she prepared to approach Gu Yanzi again to negotiate, she learned that he was organizing a charity gala. The event would gather prominent business leaders, a rare networking opportunity. Shen Qing came up with a plan. She would attend the gala, hoping to secure other partnerships and avoid relying on Gu Yanzi's generosity. That evening, Shen Qing arrived at the event in a deep purple gown, exuding a noble and confident aura that immediately captivated the crowd. Yet, as soon as she stepped into the venue, she saw that Gu Yanzi was already waiting nearby, his gaze filled with a subtle, mocking smile. Gu Yanzi strolled over leisurely and lowered his voice. I didn't expect you'd actually come. Shen Qing smiled coolly. With President Gu hosting, how could I miss it? Rest assured, I'm here only to discuss business. Gu Yanzi raised an eyebrow, his tone laced with sarcasm. Is that so? Don't you think it's a bit too late? Shen Qing's eyes flickered, and she replied coldly, then just wait and see. Throughout the evening, Shen Qing confidently mingled with several business moguls, continually seeking potential partnerships. Strangely, however, every time she reached a critical point in her discussions, her prospective partners would suddenly withdraw, as if someone was subtly intimidating them. Shen Qing's heart sank. She looked around and saw Gu Yanzi standing leisurely not far away, observing her every move, a meaningful smile playing on his lips. Taking a deep breath, she walked up to him, raising her head slightly. It's you? You're the one controlling everything behind the scenes. Gu Yanzi wasn't surprised by her accusation. He smiled faintly. I'm just adding a bit of necessary difficulty to your options. Shen Qing clenched her fists in anger, struggling to keep her emotions in check, her voice trembling slightly. Gu Yanzi, what exactly do you want? Gu Yanzi lowered his head, his gaze sharp. Shen Qing, I told you, I'm simply teaching you the rules of reality. If you want to keep playing this game, you need to understand who the real power holder is. Shen Qing's heart swelled with frustration and helplessness. She knew Gu Yanzi was pushing her step by step toward compromise. Yet she also knew she couldn't easily surrender, she had her own plans in mind. The next day, Shen Qing sought Gu Yanzi out again, proposing cooperation but with renegotiated terms. Gu Yanzi stared at her coldly, a scrutinizing gleam in his eyes. Renegotiate the terms? Shen Qing.